Okay, how's everybody doing?
Hey.
Everybody having fun? Yes. All right, fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on such an awful night tonight. Once again, my name's Jeffrey Tesh, Managing Director of RCN Capital. Tonight is all about meeting new friends, reconnecting with old friends, finding new business relationships, and finding ways to make more money. Okay, this panel is just about all that. Fix and flip investing and finding ways to buy those properties, buy them right, buy them cheap, fix them up cheap, and sell them for a ton of dough and make more money. I'm just going to go through everybody's bio real briefly here, and then we're going to get right into it. So, directly to my left, we have Joe Barletta, owner of Sell Fast Home Buyers. Starting out in 2002, Joe is a highly successful full-time real estate investor, licensed broker in the state of Connecticut. He owns Sell Fast Home Buyers, residential redevelopment company located out of North Haven. Joe personally implements, educates investors, marketing systems, targeted financial, property-related factors. Areas of Joe's expertise include rehabbing, wholesaling, buy and hold, and in addition to all of those property-related skills, Joe also has coached hundreds of students and investors. Joe is a wealth of knowledge. He shares his knowledge on a regular basis. Great to have you here, Joe. Next up, we have John Ginio, realtor at Nutmeg Realty. John has been the #1 realtor in New England for 2 years in a row, #2 nationwide for homes sold. He consistently closes over 100 homes a year and leads a well-trained, highly skilled team of agents, many diverse areas of specialization. REO and HUD are his expertise. John is also the owner of Nutmeg Property Group, which focuses on brokerage, management, and redevelopment of residential properties. He works with a company full of passionate individuals like himself, and he brings a ton of knowledge here tonight. John, welcome. Next up on our panel, we have Scott Hollister. Scott is a local rehabber, buy and hold investor. Scott co-founded the Central Connecticut Bigger Pockets. Thank you very much for that. Bigger Pockets. If you haven't been to the website, check it out. It's outstanding. Scott founded that group, and he openly shares his advice, no hidden agenda at all. Scott acquired his passion for real estate, reading, investing. After he invested in a few single-family homes, he started David Wesley Real Estate. He hopes to elevate the company to a global brand, which will help educate, guide people from the home in the buying process. He currently is pursuing creative ways for financial freedom. Isn't that what we all want? Outstanding. Welcome, Scott. And finally on our panel, tonight we have Tom Trong. He's the team leader, consultant for buyers and sellers of residential and commercial real estate at Carrington. Tom has a passion for real estate and entrepreneurship. Leveraging these two passions has helped him build a successful real estate business, helping literally thousands of clients Tom has helped. Buying and selling goals. Professionals achieve their own successes, helping many distressed homeowners help get out of very ugly situations. By purchasing and renovating many as-is, whereas, and all-faults home, putting them back into the retail market. Tom is also a developer, real estate investor, teacher, and a mentor at home investors, and also a board member at our good friends, the Asian Real Estate Association of Greater Boston. Tom, it is fantastic to have you here. Thank you so much. So let's get right into it. Job number 1, fix and flip, finding inventory. Now, the previous panel gave us a real kind of global feel on what was happening in the REO market. We drilled down a little bit in different geographic regions. But at the end of the day, if you're an investor sitting here tonight, all you really want to know is, how do I find my next great deal? So I'm going to put it right to Joe right out of the gate. Joe, where are we finding the deals today, and how are you finding the deals?
Well, first of all, thank you, Jeff, for having us here tonight. This is a wonderful event, and I'm excited to be here. And so with that said, I think every investor, unless you have a extremely diverse marketing plan, you have to focus on not just short sales, REOs. You have to have a variety of marketing strategies going out at all different times, because here in Connecticut, we don't have a huge volume of deals. So we have to focus on niches that, we got to get in front of sellers first, whether that be through probate, inherited properties, divorce, situations where they are motivation. So direct mail is a big lead driver for us. It's our largest probably lead driver. I think a lot of beginners get into this business and think, I'm just going to find something on Craigslist, or I'll just comb the MLS, and they make the mistake of not spending the money marketing, which is really what this business comes down to.
So let me just touch on that for a minute. Your largest source of leads is direct mail. How do you implement that strategy?
We work directly with the mail house. We have lists that we purchase through data providers, and we have a number of mail houses that we work with that we're deploying mass marketing direct mail week in and week out.
And are there some go-to places in the state of Connecticut or all of New England where folks are getting these lists from?
So there's a number of different ways. Some of them we actually do compile our own data for. Some like probate is one of those things that you have to, it's legwork intensive. We have a team that goes out and combs through courthouse records. Some stuff you can purchase through data providers, but realistically, we purchase a lot of data through list providers, and we send that data directly to a mail house, set up weekly mail drops, and field the leads.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. John, where are you finding the deals today, and how are you sourcing them?
Craigslist. No, just kidding. Well, I think Joe just hit the nail on the head. If you're only looking for deals one way and in one place, you're really going to struggle. The markets are ever changing. In the distress space, clients' disposition strategies change month by month, quarter by quarter. So you really need to be doing some of the things that Joe just said. You also have to pay attention to some of the seasoned properties out there. So especially, I know we touched on HUD, but especially the seasoned HUD properties. You really have to pay attention to those. And don't be afraid to make an offer if there's a seasoned property just sitting. Be aggressive. It's not going to hurt.
So you kind of touched on this briefly, which is things are changing all the time. So here we sit, spring of 2017. What has changed from spring of 2016 that you don't see working anymore versus what you're going to implement today?
As an investor, right now, if you are just solely dependent on the MLS, you are really going to struggle. Volume is down in the distress space in our state from last year. It's upticked in certain areas, but as a whole, it's down. You really need to spread yourself out and get creative. Joe just said probate. Probate, I found some of my best projects through probate. They take legwork, though. It's not as easy as the MLS, and I think that's why a lot of investors get stuck into that MLS space. It's just so easy.
Perfect. So, folks, no MLS. It's out.
Not no MLS, but
Scott, what are you doing today, and how are you sourcing the deals?
Thank you for the warm introduction, and it's hard to follow these two gentlemen and Tom up here. I feel like a kid against these giants up here, but I can speak as more of a beginner. I bought 4 single-family homes, so I'm just starting my career in real estate. I'm a teacher full-time, so I can do what I can on the side. As far as deals, I farm my area, so as long as I pick this town, I know what I can pay for an investment, and I just offer based on what the repairs are and what RCN can back me as capital. And from there, like John said, don't be afraid. Your offer should offend you most days, but that's what you can pay, and don't get your emotions in the deal. You know, don't get stuck to the house, and just learn from what you can and just keep moving forward.
So, and you know what? Everybody started somewhere, so there's no shame in that at all. So, give us an idea of how you found your first deal. And I hate to put you on the spot like that, but I think everybody here would get a real kind of a background on how it can all start for them. How'd you find your first deal?
My first deal was back in 2012. After, 2010, 2000 hit, after post-crash, both my parents lost their jobs, and they lost their house. So I have a strong why to why I'm pushing forward to do better for my life. So I got 2 houses on a single-family deed, rented out one, lived in the other, had a roommate, had my mortgage paid for. And from there, my mom used to work in the closing department at RCN, so she put me...
that?
Yeah. So I read one book, read another book, and it just started from there. Jonathan gladly took me to dinner, so he kind of started back on the trend of getting another house. And just from there, I sent him a deal. Hey, it looks good. Let's make an offer. It was off the MLS. They're asking 120, and I invest right in this backyard, 5 minutes down the road, and all in the same town. So I made the offer, went to highest and best, fell through, went back, and ended up being a great deal. RCN backed me on that. I was thankful. And I actually first met Don when I came back, and the first conversation was, hey, Don, it's nice to meet you, but I'm sorry I'm not paying back that loan. Because I'm a creative guy, and $0 out of pocket. I told him, my tenants are paying you back that interest monthly payment. So I speak to that education, that creativeness, and it really does work if you educate yourself and you know what you're doing. So
I love it. Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Outstanding. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit. Tom,
Yes, sir.
Boston,
Yep.
ultra hot right now. Super competitive.
Yes.
Every single lead is a hard-fought battle. What are you doing, and how are you finding those leads for those investment properties?
So in my next life, I want my last name to start with A, so it can be on that side of the table. All these guys give you amazing tips. We do all of that. So I wrote down notes to make sure I don't repeat what they say, right? So home investors, if you see the We Buy Ugly Houses billboards, so I'm one of those 12 guys up in Massachusetts. So we put a lot of money into radio ads, TV ads, and mostly those billboards. Bus backs, train stations, taxi cabs, all that stuff. So a lot of our leads come from that 800 number that you see. But then grassroots, we also do a lot of dig leading. I have guys who go out, and our franchisees have guys that goes out and puts up those bandit signs, right? I'm not really supposed to talk about that. A lot of municipalities don't like bandit signs. You can get fines for those. I got to throw that disclosure out there. But we've bought properties off of bandit signs. But then really, you reach out to your group, your sphere of influence, wherever your market is. I do a lot of networking. And fellow realtors. It is known in our industry in the Boston market that say, if you have a deal and you can't sell it, your buyer walks from it, call me. You'll earn the full commission on the buy side. I'm a licensed realtor, but I don't do that, right? And when I flip it, you get the listing. So they put me on the top of the list because no matter what, they're double-ending the deal on the buy and the sell. That helps a lot. We make enough money on the flip to not to cut out the guys that actually feed us the deals. Okay?
So I think that is an outstanding tip. The relationship with the real estate agents. Can you give me some examples, maybe in the past 12 months, of how that has worked for you?
Absolutely.
And how that actually all went down?
Absolutely. So we have a very large team within our office, but it doesn't matter whether leads come from our office or not. The leads, a lot of my stuff comes from my agents. There's about 120 of us in Massachusetts that works for Carrington Real Estate, and they know to give me a call first. First after their buyers walk, right? The uglier the house, the better, right? We've bought hoarder houses where no real estate agent in the neighborhood, in the area, will want to walk in. You walk up to the house, within 2 seconds of the front door, you can smell the stench and no one goes inside. Jeff, the last house I bought was back in that last summer. I have another partner who goes on the buy calls, is what we call it. But he was out of town, so I covered. And I literally walked up, and within 2 minutes, I had to walk out and throw up. But out of respect, I walked back into the house. I kept telling myself, this smell is the smell of money. The stinker it is, the more money I'm going to make. And believe me, I did very well there. All right, so to work with relationships, it's not just realtors, it's investors, it's the real estate investment groups. You got to show up. If you tell them you have cash, you better have the cash, right? You don't tie it up and then say run around and get the money somewhere else. So diversify your network. RCN is an amazing partner for us, right? We just got introduced to Jeff and his team, and they have approved every loan that we've put in front of them. So that was amazing for us. So make sure that you have to pay harder money if you have to, right? If the deal is deep enough, pay the 14, 15, 16, 18% because you can work it all into your numbers.
I think Tom just said something really important is coming from the brokerage side of it. For us, when an investor comes to us on a property, it is extremely important that you perform how you say you're going to perform and you commit to performing. Because if you don't, as the listing broker, the listing brokerage, looks horrible to our client, especially a corporate client, when we bring a cash buyer that doesn't end up closing. So that's extremely important to solidifying a long-term relationship with that brokerage.
The reputation is everything. I have investors who come to me and says, Tom, can your team help me find stuff? All right, so we dig, we find, and then we bring them a deal, and then they don't have the cash. And that just totally embarrassed us. Next time we knock on that door and we have the direct dial to the asset manager, we have their cell phone, and we tell them we have a buyer, and then it blew up. Do you think they're going to pick up my phone call the next time?
And they're not going to think of you next time they have a property.
And they won't think of me next time they have a property in my backyard either. Right.
Fantastic. So we've discussed how we're going to get the property. With any luck, we've secured that property now. Hopefully, we've financed it correctly, with RCN preferably, but moving on. Let's talk about how we're going to rehab the property. And what I really want to drill down to is, especially for the folks that are just getting into the business, do I GC everything out? Do I hire my own people? What do I take on myself, and what do I send out to somebody else? And Tom, out of respect for you, we're going to come back this way. So we're going to start with you this time. Drilling down on how to decide what we're going to do to that house and who we're going to use.
So drilling down to what we're going to do to the house in terms of a renovation, how big of a renovation project?
So how big a renovation are we going to
Gotcha.
do, and
Gotcha.
who are we going to use?
Gotcha. Okay. So how big is pretty simple for us. You got to run your ARV, right, after repair value. And we never, ever want to be at the top end of that market. So if that neighborhood is a $450,000 neighborhood, your ARV better be like 425 tops. You don't want to be at 435 because that stuff is going to sit on the market a lot longer, all right? And so based on the 425, you got to know your market. We get out there and we look at homes. So when we make an offer on a house, what we do is we drive to the next 3 to 5 properties. 5 is better. At the bare minimum, before we go to our appointment, we drive and look at other 3 to 5 houses that's on the market right now, that's comparable to this. We take pictures, we get out of the car. If there isn't a dog in the yard, we walk around the property just to see what it looks like. And then we go to our appointment. When we get to our appointment, we have a very good idea of what the property looks, what the comparison is going to look like, so that when we walk in, we understand what kind of rehab project we have. Now remember, we also have access to these properties which are on MLS, so you can look at the pictures to see, is it granite countertop, or is it just Formica? Is it stainless steel, or is it just white appliances? Is it hardwood floors, or is it wall-to-wall carpeting? You understand the grade, the value, and then you build that into your renovations project, right? So to answer the second question, contractors, hey, that's a tough game, right? I mean, Who needs a good contractor? Who has a great contractor that they're willing to share? Got it? So it's very tough, right? Having a great contractor that doesn't up your price over time is very tough. So Jeff, I don't know I don't have a secret formula other than when our contractors work, they get paid. So you pay them fast, they're better to you.
So actually, let's touch on that for a second. You pay your contractors fast, and they're going to work harder for you. Do you have a little secret there that you do with your contractors that maybe gives you the edge over other investors?
Yes. When we work with contractors, we have a budget. We show them our budget, and it's certainly not retail contracting price. It's wholesale, right? But they know we can keep employing them during the slow months of the year, right? And so they understand there's a longer-term relationship. And when they hit that budget, and we hit our ARV resale, anything above it, we give them a bonus. So does that incentivize them to do a better job, not to cut corners? Because at home inspection, if the home inspector comes through and we pass with flying colors and I get over asking, overbidding, and I make more money, I want to reward my contractors as well.
Write that down, folks. That's a huge tip, Tom.
It works. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Bonus out your contractors.
Yep. And if they finish on ahead of time, I give them bonuses because it's less carrying cost for me. Unfortunately, I pay you less, Jeff, but it works.
We appreciate that, Tom. Thank you very much. Scott, so when you're getting into that house, how are you deciding what you're going to do to it, and who are you going to use to do it?
Once I get into the house, like Tom said, make sure that you're not at the top of that chain in that neighborhood. Look at what people are selling, what's on the market. Maybe just do a little bit better. What's going to sell? Is it the granite really going to sell it that much faster, or are you just over rehabbing a property and just spinning your wheels? And I think it's also important to notice that Tom is kind of a big dog over here. He's late in his career, and I'm just getting on the train starting. So we were speaking before and how he got started, back in the 90s with his first deal, and he was doing all the work himself. Now he's a smart businessman. He's taken himself out of doing that. My model right now is I'm doing the work. I'm the tile. I'm the kitchen. I'm fitting the cabinets. I'm making sure I'm doing the crown. I'm doing the baseboard. But I can only be at one house at one time. Tom is available to do multiple houses at the same time. So that's my goal, is to really understand the work now. So when I go to get that general contractor and I start subbing things out, I can negotiate a better price because I really know what's involved, and implement that reward system that is going to make them work a little bit harder at that rehab that's going to meet that appraisal. So.
Don't get me wrong, I do swing the hammer still too, because I want to make sure our contractors know I can swing a hammer, and you're not going to pull the wolves over my eyes. So you'll see me on the job site probably, once in a while I'll show up with my boots, my belt, and I'm there swinging it with them. And you know what? I work twice as fast as they do.
Every time.
Every time, right? I got to keep that pace up.
Fantastic. So, John, you're typically running multiple flips at one time. I think you can look at this from another angle. Multiple contractors managing multiple outside employees. At the same time, you're juggling what to do with newly acquired flips. How are you doing it all?
Well, so I don't have one set strategy. And I know I drive these guys nuts because I do so many different things with the properties that I work on. I specifically and exclusively use GCs. I agree with Tom. They need to know that you have a very good understanding of construction, or they're going to possibly try to take advantage of your lack of knowledge. I don't swing a hammer. It's really not my strong suit. But I do GC every job. When I get into a job, I'll go into it looking at it as a potential flip. Sometimes when I'll get into them, if they look like they're coming in way under budget, and I can potentially turn it into a rental where I can have some pretty good cash flow and it's in a market area where I think it'll appreciate over time, I'll try to hold on to it and get it rented out. I do that in specific areas of specific towns and in specific price points. I do more fix and flip than I do buy and hold, because some of the areas that I'll buy properties in just aren't conducive for me to do rentals. That either the price point's too high or the budget's too high or whatnot. One of the things I can tell you, and I have a lot of experience in losing money on projects, as funny as that sounds. I've lost a lot on a lot of projects. I've done really well on a lot of projects. And the one thing that I can tell you is the determining factor is your contractor, is the quality of the work and the time that they take to do it. One of the things that we've started to do, which I don't think is quite as good as Tom's bonus structure that he has, is we now require our contractors to sign a contract with us up front that is very detailed. I think it's 7 pages long. It has a breakdown of the entire scope line by line. I mean, it's ridiculous how much we break down the scope. And the reason I do that is I've found in the past, if you don't do that, it's very easy for a contractor to say, well, hey, you told me to replace the windows, but you didn't specify that you wanted the outside of it reflashed or painted, and what can you do? They met the contract. So we're very specific in that. We offer a bonus as far as timelines. If they complete a project early, then we'll pay them a per diem bonus. On the other side of that, if they finish a project late, we'll charge them a per diem fee. To make that fair, we do allow them to set the timeline of the project as long as it's reasonable. We're not going to give them 8 months to do it, but we think it's fair to let them set the timeline, because how can you ask them to do a project in 15 days, it's really a 45-day project, and then charge them? Nobody's going to do it for you. So that's helped a ton. That's really been the one thing that's helped us a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's an outstanding tip. Detailed contracts for your GCs, and if you're subbing it out yourself, detailed contracts. I imagine you could probably Google a lot of this stuff and be able to find stuff available free over the internet.
And honestly, if anybody's interested, I don't mind emailing what we use to you. I have no problem with that at all.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. Joe, so what are we doing and who are we using?
So when it comes down to the question of to what level do we improve, starts with really knowing your market. Knowing what your competition is and positioning your product where it's going to be placed in a position to sell quickly. So if you don't have to go high end, or you don't have to, some houses in hotter markets will sell in average condition. So you don't have to go all out redoing the entire house if you acquire it at a deep enough discount, and don't have to go, full rehab and just do minor paint and cosmetics, windows, floors, and touch everything up. Why not position it where it's going to sell faster instead of trying to go full-end, high-end retail where you're going to be holding it a lot longer? So it really comes down to knowing your market and what you're up against as far as competition goes. In terms of working with contractors, as business owners, our highest and best use of our time is not spent swinging a hammer. Granted, I completely get it. I've been there. I come from a construction background. But as business owners, our highest and best use of our time is going out, meeting sellers, and making deals, putting deals together. Now, when you have a good team and you have a good contractor that you can trust that is going to handle everything from A to Z for you, once you've got them trained and they're on board, you are free to do that, and that's where your highest dollar amount comes into play.
So I think you touched on something interesting there. At the end of the day, when you're deciding whether to do the full-on rehab or just a more cosmetic rehab, is it just the dollars and cents of the time, not only taxes, interest, how much you're paying on that, versus the potential reward for that? How are you deciding? Because This is a question that every investor faces, which is, do I rip out the entire kitchen and put a new kitchen in, or do I just paint it and maybe sand the floors? I mean, every investor faces this question.
Of course, yeah, and it's a tough thing, but it really comes down to looking at the market data and knowing what exactly, like, if you go high end, let's say it's a $300,000 top end ARV, and there are very few sales at that price point from 275 to 300, but your sweet spot is 250 to 275, and you can make that deal work without going that much higher end. I want to position that property in that price point where we're going to get it sold and make a decent profit on it, but it's going to sell at the quickest, as opposed to going higher end and, maybe, there's only 1 or 2 transactions in the past 6 months at that price point. I'm going to position to the point where we're going to get a fast sale. So
to Joe's point, when I have had my worst projects, made my biggest mistakes, and lost the most money, is when I tried to do exactly what he described and milk every penny out of a project instead of just getting it done at a reasonable price point and moving on. I'll give you an exact example if you want to ask me later. I'll give you an address.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
So, all great points. Another thing that we do is who understands how to run a market absorption rate? Okay? So how we determine, Jeff, is when we go into it, if we know we're going to finish this thing in 45 days to 60 days. So what we do is we look at what is, if we're selling this house for $425,000, let's go outside and let's see how many houses we're going to be competing with approximately 6 weeks from now. And if there's a lot of inventory already at $425,000, then we're just going to put lipstick on it, right? Instead of spending $70,000 on a rehab, we just might do what's necessary. Don't replace the kitchen, don't replace the bath. Just do it so it passes home inspection, and then price it at like, $360,000, $370,000. We're making the same profits, but it's going to move a lot faster. Market absorption rates.
Well put.
And that changes from season to season,
Well put. So we found the property. We've acquired the property. We've hired our GC. They've completed the rehab. Now the fun part. We're putting that property on the market. We've discussed how much money we're going to put into the property as that compares to what we are potentially going to charge for the property. So my question to each of you now is, you've determined your sales price. You've put that property on the market. How do you decide when to move that price? And I'm going to start down this end.
again, it comes down to positioning your, knowing where you can get the highest end of your retail value, but putting it in a position where it's going to sell at the quickest amount of time. If you, it's all based on feedback too. We rely heavily on feedback. If we don't have an offer on a property within the first 30 to 45 days, I know something's not right because I'm putting out an awesome product. It's showing nicely. Everything is done. If we're not getting good feedback, it all comes down to price. If something's not moving fast enough, it's probably price.
Sure. John?
We gauge when we're going to move our price by showing activity. So if we're not getting any showing activity, we are just grossly overpriced, which you hope you're never in that position because you've done enough diligence up front, but it happens. If you're getting a lot of showings and you're just not getting offers, it usually means one of two things. Either you're close on your price or your contractor just did not do a good job. Either case, you're going to have to lower your price. So we base it primarily on showing activity and feedback. And we usually do, similar to what Joe said, we do 30 days, and then if we don't have something going on, we're moving the price. And you have to gauge how drastically you move that price based on what your activity's been. If you've had one showing in a month, you got to move it a lot. If you've had 20, either you need to reassess the quality of the construction or you need to get it adjusted just a little bit. And stage the houses. Please, please spend the money and stage them. It doesn't take a lot of money and it's very worthwhile.
Great tip. Staging, folks. Scott, pricing.
Both great points. I can't really speak to the selling side. I'm more of a landlord playing the real-life game of Monopoly. I think as a landlord, the key to financial freedom and wealth is making money while you sleep. Flipping is a job. Okay, if you stop, you don't make money. Landlord's kind of more off task. You're dealing with tenants and toilets and things like that. So you have to assess what your goals are. But in terms of selling, I'm working on a flip right now. It's, you know, like I said before, and these guys have said, don't be the best house in the block. I think that's a recipe for disaster and something for it to sit a while. So.
Sure. So, Tom, we've talked about market absorption rate. We've talked about days on market. What I really want to know is, whatever that magic mark is, days on market, market absorption, how do you really know how much to move that price, and how do you do that?
Look at what is going under agreement right under your nose, right? So we train our team that if you're putting this house on the market, if you're my listing agent, then I question them. Did you see the next 7, 8, 9, 10 houses that we're competing with? Like, did you really walk the property? And sometimes I test them because I walk those properties when I have the time.
You don't want Tom testing you.
All right? So did you really walk that kitchen? Did you really give me the right comparative market analysis before you told me what this price should be? So you just got to understand your market like the back of your hand. Right? So yes, it's either price, guys, or condition. I don't win them all, guys. Nobody wins them all, right? So I just did a project this past winter. I bought the house right after Thanksgiving, all right? And then it took me forever to get zoning because we needed a permit for a septic system. It was hard to design the septic. That's why it sat on there for a long time. We solved the septic system, and then we finished the renovations we got the septic in first because the snow was, the freezing ground was working against us, all right? So the septic got in. The inside of the house got finished. It is absolutely beautiful. It is a first-time home buyer, move-in property, but the yard looked like crap. All right? The yard is all torn up. We can't plant grass. We can't plant trees. We can't do landscaping, no mulching, no nothing. And after 30 days, I dropped it $10,000. After 30 days, I dropped it $10,000. And I'm scratching my head. I'm like, why am I dropping that much money? The house is well worth it. All the other houses coming on have nice trees in the front lawn. So I pulled it. I pulled it about 4 weeks ago, I think. And I'm just going to sit on it. My carrying cost is nothing based on how much I'm going to make. All right? So I can't wait for this weather to break. I'm going to hydro seed the lawn instead of put down the regular seed. I'm going to hydro seed it so I can take green pictures. Right? I'm going to do everything I can from the outside landscaping rise. I'm going to put it back to the price I was before, $30,000 more. And I'm betting it's going to go. So it cost me an extra. Photoshop a lawn on that. So, that's true. You can Photoshop it when they show up, though, they're not going to trust me.
All right, fantastic. So the anatomy of a flip right there from your exports. We're going to open up for about 5 minutes of questions here. Karen, if we've got a mic, that would be fantastic. Let's see.
Here you go, Karen.
Fantastic. Gentleman on the wall there.
Thanks. Do you guys sell your own houses or do you list them?
Anybody?
I actually have one of my realtors that works in my brokerage list and market them for me, or I'll do it myself.
I have other people list all my houses. I don't want to be doing open houses. I pay the other agents, my agents or whoever found me the deal to list the house.
If somebody else finds us a deal,
Yes.
we have them list it. That's very wise to do.
I have a team agent that lists our listings as well. Occasionally, though, I have listed my own properties before. There's pros and cons to it. You know, it's tough. If I did, I would always negotiate from saying that I had a partner in the business, you know, just so it wasn't me making that decision. But, you know, saving that end on the commission does make an extra added bonus to that sometimes. So but it's a double-edged.
Yeah, I think it's very important to find what you're good at and surround yourself with a good team. Like you said, pros and cons. And what Joe said earlier, highest and best use of time. If you're spending time during open houses, can you get more deals if that's your best suit? So
I want to qualify my answer. So I let other agents, I want other agents to list my house, but I get a referral fee. I don't have to do the work, just get the referral fee. Got it?
If you're a full-time investor and you're a casual realtor, you have to be careful because it's not necessarily a great idea to be licensed because you're held to a higher standard in the association, the National Association of Realtors' eyes. If you don't disclose that you're a realtor and you don't disclose true market value of a home, that maybe you're buying from HomeVestor and you buy it well undervalued, there's actually some liability that you have there. So you just have to be careful of that.
Questions?
Hi, have you ever challenged a GC's estimates or provided your own estimates, sending them out for bid?
So challenging that GC estimate when they come in.
For us, we come up with estimates. We come up with our building costs, and we hand it to them and see if they can meet those numbers. So it doesn't come this way. We give it out, and then they bid on it if they can do the job.
Same.
I actually let the GCs typically give me the quote, but I already know what I want to pay. Typically, I will challenge their quote. If it's a really good contractor that does really high quality work, sometimes I'll pay them a little more than I want to just because I know the job will be done on time and I know the quality of work I'll get. So,
Once you have a good contractor that you trust, though, it's not, if their price is within your budget, I don't try to split hairs. I don't beat them up on that. And I know they're being fair with me. Unless something is really like out of the ordinary, will I question it. But otherwise, when you do enough of it and you have that relationship there, it's usually trustworthy enough.
And just once again, I love the idea of price it fair with your GC and then bonus them. Everybody loves a bonus, including the folks that are going to be working really hard for you. Questions?
Okay, so I have like 2 questions. I'm just trying to hit it twice so I wouldn't have to come back and call again. But the first question is threshold. As an investor, how do you determine your threshold and know that in spite of going into a project and knowing that when you smash your first wall, the probability of you finding a cracked pipe is very high, which will very much alter your budget. Or you might go into the electrical panel, for example, and really find your electrical work to be not up to standard. All right, that would really crack into your budget. And so your threshold, how do you guys determine your threshold? And the second question is, you know, every market is different, and security is like paramount. So you can start off with your budget. Your GC gave you an estimate of how much your material is going to cost, and the material is brought in or shipped in. But the following day, you kind of like, it's all gone. If you're working with copper or you're working with pegs, it's gone, right? So how do you guys determine your security issues and ensuring that your investment is not going to be a total waste?
So let's kind of intertwine those questions. So threshold, in other words, scope of work. How much are you really willing to take on in that first investment of yours? Second, security. And that's an outstanding question, because RCN Capital, we get that phone call from the borrower who says, "You'll never believe what happened when I showed up to the job site today." And we'll say, call your insurance company. But there's preventative measures that I'm sure our esteemed panel can throw out there.
Yeah, both great questions. I can speak to the first one. Threshold is a newer beginner. I think John had a really good point in a line-by-line scope of work. Not only do you need that for your benefit, but RCN is going to ask you that as well. So it's really good for you to kind of know your numbers. that not only helps you with that deal, it helps you with future deals because you can kind of look at a house real quick and be like, okay, I can kind of pay this. Okay, if it gets accepted, let me go into more detail. That's kind of my thing, so I can kind of look at a boatload of properties at a time, as opposed to me spending a lot of time wasting it if the deal doesn't get accepted. Also, the security, that's tough. I mean, I like A, B neighborhoods, so I don't know if we have like a C, D war zone. That might be a little bit tougher, so.
Go ahead, John.
Well, so for me, threshold, and I'm not sure if you're talking about threshold of repairs or threshold of profit, so I'm gonna speak on threshold of profit. That's totally market driven. What I mean by that is you have to assess the inventory and the competition. If you're in a market that there's plenty of inventory and really not much competition in what you're doing, you can be a lot more selective. You can wait out for those projects with those bigger profits built in. If you're in a market with lower inventory and it's more competitive, well, it probably makes more sense to take those projects with a smaller profit and just do more of them. We wouldn't have been able to do that without RCN, but we took that strategy the last 2 years and just set what most people would think was a pretty low profit point, but for us it worked as long as we got in and out of the projects quickly. As far as security goes, have great insurance, for one thing. Go to the project as much as you can, or if you can't, have a staff member or have a friend or have a GC that you can really trust. You should be at your project every other day. Even if nobody's working on it, even if it's done, you should be there often, especially in New England. If you're not there for 2 days, the pipes could freeze. You could be walking into knee-deep water in the basement. You have to be at these jobs a lot.
Sure. Joe?
As far as one of the great things about this business is for entry level, I mean, based on your expertise and your experience level, you don't have to go all out and start with like a full gut rehab. You can enter at like a cosmetic rehab. If you're talking about, unforeseen things that happens, you always have to have contingencies, and you need to build that into your budget and be ultra conservative when you're first getting started. But it helps if you have somebody, that you can trust, a good contractor, another investor, that you can walk through that house. If you haven't done many walkthroughs or scope of work or repair estimates, to have somebody that you can rely on to make sure that you didn't miss anything. But ultimately, you want to have a good system in place that you're not going to overlook anything, and if there is unforeseens, you have a contingency in place to deal with it if it does arise.
Tom?
So when I first started years ago, my threshold is my appetite for risk at that point in time. How much money did I really have to lose, right? Because if I mess up, I really lost all my money. So the appetite for risk is a lot less, so I'd find the easier projects, the simple lipstick, no gut rehabs, stuff that might not even require permits. My early years, none of that stuff needed permits. It was paint, it was patch, it was landscaping, easy stuff without permitting. As you get more seasoned in the business, you get to take on the heavier lifting jobs, which knocks out a lot of guys and gals flipping houses. They can't go through the permitting process, the zoning process, the variances and stuff like that, and that comes with larger profits as well. In terms of security, a couple of things that, I'm just trying not to repeat some of these guys. So never have more than supplies in the house for more like 2 to 3 days. You're visiting the house. If they're sheetrocking the whole home, and it's a 5,000 square foot home, have enough that they can only sheetrock for 2 to 3 days and have the truck come 3 days later and drop off more. Now have more plumbing supplies that the plumbers can't get to. Don't leave it all around. If I have a big roof, I have half of the supply gets sent here and then the half come after, right? So plan your drops properly so the stuff doesn't sit in the house. This is a cool one. I say hi to all my neighbors. I'm coming in, I'm flipping an ugly house. They want to meet who's the guy who's renovating it. I also create very goodwill. I give them my card. I tell them, listen, until you see a for sale sign on this lawn, nothing's coming out of this house. If you see people taking stuff out, please give me a call. Here's my card. Call me day, night, anytime. All right? Last but not least, in very tough neighborhoods, we flipped houses in tough neighborhoods, there's always kids hanging around outside the streets more than better neighborhoods. Fair to say? So I walk around, I introduce myself to these kids if I can see them, and I give them $10, $20, $30. Listen, I need you to babysit my house. Nothing's come out of this house. You're only going to see guys bringing stuff in, no guys bring stuff out. And last but not least, contractors. They all know they own their tools. My pet peeve, you never leave your tools unlocked or in the house. If you lose it, it's on you.
All great advice. Yes, Karen?
We now have wireless cameras. And I highly recommend that. We're using that in our
Great
practice.
idea. Wireless cameras
Right on your phone.
in the job site. Yep, fantastic. Folks, that is going to wrap up our program for this evening. I cannot thank this panel enough. The anatomy of how to fix and flip a house and make a ton of money. Let's give them a big round of applause.